Hello and welcome to another episode of My Favourite Game from the Honest Football Podcast.
On the show this week, we've got the fantastic Minnie Birch. The singer-songwriter is going to talk to us about her new football-themed album. She has quite a unique relationship with football, actually. She talks to us also about her opportunities as an amateur footballer, especially being female. And, of course, we talk about her favourite ever football match. Definitely give Minnie a follow on social media. And if you can, she's been on BBC Radio and all sorts. Try and look out for her music. It is fantastic. And we're not saying that just because it's football themed, but genuinely it is brilliant.
And don't forget, if you'd like to be part of this favourite game series, just give us a message at Honest Football 3.
Okay, so I'm delighted to be joined by Minnie now, and you've got quite an interesting background, which we'll talk through in the episode, but I'll start as I do normally by asking about your first footballing memory, whether it be as a fan or playing. What's your first memory of the game?
My very first memory is quite patchy, to be honest. I remember going to see a football game with my family. I cannot remember who was playing. It was a family friend played on a team. I want to say a Saturday league team, and I remember being excited at first, then I remember being very cold and very bored. I remember my toes going numb. But then our family friend went in for a header and got quite badly injured, got stretchered off with concussion. And then I remember obviously spending the rest of the game vengeful against the other team that he'd been hurt and getting really into the spirit of wanting his team to win and starting the chanting and the singing along. So yeah, that's kind of my first memory, but it's pretty patchy. So I can't remember how old I was. Tiny.
It's certainly a pretty unique one, I'll give you that. And then growing up, I guess, as either a fan or playing, what were your main memories along your childhood of football?
So my relationship with football is quite weird. So I came to football quite late. So obviously I have that vague memory of football that I just shared with you. But then football isn't really a part of my life really for a long time, other than maybe watching it most people do when there's a big event or something a big World Cup. But then as a musician, my friend Holly asked me to come play as halftime entertainment at a Watford Ladies game. Cool. And yeah, it was really cool. They played at Berkhamsted Football Ground then. I think they were in the Women's Super League then, Division 2, which I think they're still in now. And so I went along not really knowing too much and completely fell in love. I was like, this is amazing. And that was the turning point for me. But that was only I think 5 or 6 years ago. It wasn't that long. So it's kind of been since then that I started I joined the Sunday league team and got into watching football. So yeah, it's all really new and exciting to me. So I'm a proper newbie, which I think is maybe a bit rare as an adult to come to football later on.
It's a little bit rarer, but as long as you fall in love with the game.
Yeah, I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe for women in particular, the Women's World Cup and stuff might have changed that a little bit, because I saw our local league, which tends to be like our local Sunday league, which tends to be older women, has had the biggest intake this season and stuff, and I think that's partly the World Cup. So maybe it isn't so rare actually. Maybe once it's shown to you that it can be something that's more for you, rather than at school when it's the boys play football, you guys play netball, perhaps. I don't think that happens so much anymore, but for me, school in the 90s, that was how it worked. So maybe there are more of us out there. Yeah, maybe there's more of us out there that are finding football later on. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, it's really great you say that, because I think the Women's World Cup's had such an impact, even locally here. You see so many more, even on the streets and in the local parks, just seeing young girls playing football, which is something you never traditionally used to see, which is really great.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, as I say, I'd never played football before, and just 5-6 years ago, I could just rock up to my Sunday league and be like, can I have a crack? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, we don't have enough players. Whereas now they've got got tryouts and stuff. So yeah, it's really good. That's changed in a really short space of time. So.
And then talk to me a little bit about your enjoyment of playing, because obviously again you've started playing as an adult, which is a little bit different. So talk to us a bit about that.
So the team I actually played for, they folded maybe 2-3 seasons ago, which is a real shame. So I stopped kind of playing. I did a bit of five-a-side stuff, but I mostly actually play roller derby now. I don't play so much football. because essentially I did come to it as an adult and I'm pretty terrible at it. So I enjoy it, but that's like the downside of like it being really popular. I feel like I can't just rock up to a team now. They've got like proper tryouts and people that are, you know, doing really good at the game or getting back into it that used to play when they were younger. So I need the team I played for was Bedman Ladies FC, and we were like a proper like hungover school teachers and shop assistants on a Sunday morning kind of football team. Do you know the kind? Like, can we just take a moment while Sarah throws up on the side of the pitch? Okay, and we're back. And we're good. So that's like my experience. But like, I've never had like such like a nice supportive network of people to be around. Like, honestly, feel like if you're having a difficult time in life or with your like mental well-being or something, go join your Sunday league or your five-a-side team locally. Like, they will save you.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, Sunday league football is the best football in the world. And as you mentioned, it's quite a good thing actually. It's more about the social side than it is the football even, because it's just 10 to 15 people gathered together every week, and it's almost like a therapy for the working week, as you say. So
yeah, because that was like my introduction to football. I then got into watching more maybe like Premier League stuff, and I was like, why are they being sent off for that? He didn't punch her in the head. Like, I kind of have like quite an skewed version of like what is acceptable like manhandling on the football pitch.
It's definitely a bit older school, isn't it?
Yeah, it can be.
I just wanted to move on a bit because obviously you're a bit of a late bloomer into following football, which is quite a unique take. And do you have a team now that you support or follow at all, or is it just the general enjoyment of the game?
Yeah, I think it's a general enjoyment. So Watford Ladies still play right near me. They're at Kings Langley football ground. So I will go and see them. Obviously, I live in Hemel Hempstead, so Watford is the Premier League team that I would follow mostly. So it's been a long season so far. But yeah, I pick up players that I really love. Like Gylfi is one of my favourites. I kind of follow what Everton do, and so yeah, I'm very fickle. I'm probably not a proper football fan in that way.
That's probably one of the nice things of joining as an adult, actually, because you don't have that attachment to a certain team. You can find players you love and not have to hide in a corner if they go and join a team you don't like or something, which is probably quite a nice way to be able to work.
Yeah, I guess like I don't seem to have the highs and lows, I guess, that other football fans do. So although I don't have the highs, I also don't have the like disparaging lows when a team doesn't do so well. Yeah, I can just fickly jump to another one.
I wanted to move on a little bit about your work because it's probably the most interesting reason we've got you on this podcast, and it's such a unique thing, which is you have a bit of work that's obviously as a musician but quite related to football. So talk to us a little bit about it, how you got into it, and why you do it, because it's quite interesting.
Oh, I'm glad you find it interesting. So I'm worried that it's just a really niche thing that, that not many people will. But yeah, I guess so. I've been a musician. That's what I do. I make music. I'm like a folk musician. So obviously when I got into football and started going to bigger games in particular, I was quite attracted to the singing and the chanting. So I got a bit like into this and started like collecting the songs, which basically means I had a spreadsheet and I was like making a note of ones that I'd heard and which teams they thought they belonged to, and then I started researching online and talking to other people, and I eventually got to this point where I wanted to make a record, and I have just finished the record. It comes out next year, based on football songs. So it's essentially the songs I've chosen are old folk songs, old kind of English folk that's made its way onto the terraces. So things like My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, and I've kind of reworked them but fed in some of the actual words from the terraces as well. So it's a bit of an unusual record, but I hope people are gonna enjoy it.
I'm certainly interested to hear it, because it's probably one of the most unique things I've heard in relation to football. And as you say, at the moment, that probably makes it quite niche. But I think you could potentially start a trend, because you'll have that huge fan base of football fans who will be probably quite interested to see what it's about. And then obviously there's the musical side as well, which will have its normal following. It's quite a unique field to go down. I'm interested how you got into it.
Well, I think because like folk music is about, if you do like traditional folk, you're kind of reworking like traditional like English, Irish, Scottish songs, and they say like a lot about their social like political context of the time. And I kind of feel like the football terraces are like our folk music. Like if people identify themselves so much by their hometown and their team, then the songs that they sing as part of that's their folk music. And it has kind of changed through time, it seems to me, from coming at it like as a new person, it can tell you like a lot about our history.
Yeah.
And also it's one outside of church, it's one of the only places where we all come together and sing en masse.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anyone at a football ground thinks, oh, I'm a folk musician. But I'm like you kind of are. Like this is folk music in its rawest kind of form. I just really love that feeling as well. Like my brother is a Man U season ticket holder, and he took me to a game, and my God, it's like at one point they were singing at VR, which I've never really heard before, VAR, sorry, and I was they weren't being particularly polite about it, but I was like, because they were all together in this, I was like, this is nearly 80,000 people all chanting. It just feels nice, that sound. It can't sound bad. Like it's that thing of singing together when the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and I like that feeling. And I think it's more positive. As someone that came to football later, I probably had that view that like actually this is quite a negative side of football, or football has a lot of negativity surrounded to it sometimes, particularly with what goes on the terraces. But as a new person, I was like bowled over by like, this is a really positive thing, and I think I wanted to somehow share that with maybe other folk musicians who also hadn't realised like this is part of what we do, like collecting social history through singing in groups together.
It's a great way to keep it in modern society as well, I guess, because it's a lot of football. I guess the songs that are sung at football grounds, people wouldn't normally listen to in their day-to-day lives generally, but it keeps its way in society because they're singing it en masse at a football ground, which is something you'd never expect to happen.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely people that will have collected them, and like from my research, there's definitely like a lot of terrace recordings like online and stuff. And I think there's even been like a terrace laureate, like the person who wrote like football chants, who was like employed to do that and stuff. So I think there is like definitely like a history of it that I guess just me coming at it new, I was just really excited and was like, oh, I want to capture this somehow. But there's definitely other little projects out there that people have done to bring it to life. And someone said to me they're taking away a lot of like the seated bit in a lot of stands so that they can bring the singing back, which was really cool to hear. But again, as someone that's new, I was like, bringing it back, it happens all the time, doesn't it? But a few like hardcore football fans were like, actually no, like it's a bit of a dying art. And I'm like, is it? That's crazy. Like,
imagine what it would have like before.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because to me as like a new like fan, I was like, really, this is like the best part of this is the biggest and best part of the whole game.
I guess moving on to we will move on to the favourite game, which is the whole point of this series.
Sorry.
In a minute. Don't worry, we always build up to it this way. It's perfect. Just finally, obviously talking about music next year, I know there's going to be a lot of football fans interested in that record. So just tell us about where people can find it, where people will be able to order it when it's out.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, the record is called You're Not Singing Anymore, and it comes out in May time. So it'll be I'm not 100% sure exactly what day. We're going to kind of drop it towards the end of the season, and it'll be in all the usual places like Spotify and wherever your normal streaming places are. But you can grab my website is just minniebirch.co.uk, or you can come to a live show and then you can grab a record there. But I'm working with some management at the moment who are booking an autumn tour of more like football venues, so we're gonna take the show out. And part of what I did for the record just quickly was collect people's football memories as well, so we're hoping to go out in autumn and collect a few more like just people's experiences of the terraces and try to kind of archive that in some way too.
That's really cool. I wish you all the best with it, because I think it's a fantastic idea, and I hope it goes down as well as I think it's going to, because I've already researched your music a bit and I know you've got a very good voice, so I'm hoping that with the musical stuff that will go well as well.
Oh, thank you. I'll make sure I get you guys a copy of the record.
Very kind of you. And then moving on, I guess, to the big question, and the series that we're in now is the favourite game series. Now, I guess yours is probably a bit of a smaller repertoire to choose from because of your following football a bit later on. But I'm guessing of all of the games that you've watched, or even ones that you've played in, what's your favourite footballing game and favourite footballing memory?
So it's always, I feel like it's always the last game you went to, but I'm not going to go with that one. But for me, like I was really fortunate to go out to France for the Women's World Cup last year. So it's definitely like a World Cup game, but I was like, is he going to be like, what have you done? I've chosen a 0-0, a draw, and I think it was the only draw of the World Cup actually. And I know that kind of doesn't sound very exciting, but it was what's the date? Well, it was June, Women's World Cup, and I went to the Parc des Princes Stadium that is like the home of Paris Saint-Germain. And I don't know if you've ever been there or seen it, but was so keen. I got there super early, and I think all of this is like part of why it's my favourite game. I got there super early, and I went to get our seats super early, which was kind of like, I shouldn't have done that because it made it feel like there was like 10 people at the game before everyone piled in. But you walk up like the stairs there, and you know, like how all big football stadiums, you can see the sky before you can see the pitch, and I'm still at that point of like 8-year-old kid that's going to their first game, remember? So it's so exciting. But they have the seats there as well, like they're red, white and blue, but they're patterned so it looks like the Eiffel Tower. And there was just this real sense of like excitement. But it was the Argentina-Japan game, and obviously Japan have won the World Cup before, and I think Argentina hadn't qualified. At least they hadn't qualified for the previous one in Canada. So it was kind of like a draw was quite exciting, to be honest. So the Japanese fans were insane. Like they were like handing out flags and headscarves to everyone, and I would not be surprised if they're like still singing now. Like they sang. Like Japan were meant to win this game. They didn't. They Argentina just gave Argentina were just like, we will just sit every single player on the goal line, like we're not even going to make any tries. They just couldn't be broken down, and I think it was a good tactic, probably. Really, like Japan just couldn't break them down at all, and it should have been the most boring game. Honestly, these Japanese fans, like I think they will still be singing now. Like they just sung and banged their little drums like the whole thing, and the atmosphere was just really good. And then I'm pretty sure England had Argentina next. Like we'd just beaten Scotland, we had Argentina next, and you like sense that feeling. There was a lot of like, just being in France, there was an England game the night before, there was a lot of like English fans there, and you could sense that feeling of like, oh, it's on, like this isn't going to be as easy as we thought. And all those like probably been paying attention to Japan, but we're not really seeing them in action because they just can't push forward, so it's not really a helpful game for the players to watch. And also thinking, actually, we're probably not going to break down Argentina. It was just exciting, and there was just such like a diverse crowd there, like, which was so nice to see. I think football in general is more diverse than people think, but it can be. Like when I went to Old Trafford the other week with my brother, there was a lot of guys of a certain age and a certain background maybe, and this was just super. There were so many kids at the Women's World Cup, and it was just a really nice feeling. And then when I read later, I think it's something like the stadium was only half full. Like it just didn't feel like that. It just felt like the most exciting game of football. Like no goals, most exciting game of football. And Stephanie Freppart was reffing, so it was quite cool to catch that. I don't think she got a very good review of that game, but it was still really it was still really exciting. And I think that's the thing for me, like everything's new and exciting. I'm like seeing like particular refs that you read about for the first time, like experiencing things for the first time. So yeah, I think that's my like favorite game.
I think that's a really, really good, and again, you've just managed to be unique somehow. It's a really good choice to pick a 0-0. Which
sorry, I don't know.
I actually
You're
think
like,
it's.
We will not run this episode.
You found the perfect reason we started this series, which is most people's favourite game have absolutely nothing to do with the football match itself in terms of what happened on the 90 minutes, but the experience of whether it's. So when I picked my favourite game, it was a weekend away as a teenager that I'll just remember. I don't remember the football game at all, but I remember everything else. And
that's cool.
And it's just one of those things that brings people together. And you mentioned it there. You were sat amongst a sea of Japanese and Argentinian people, and English people who'd come in, and French people who were there as locals.
Yeah.
And that's a situation, I guess, in a normal day-to-day life you would never usually find. And it makes football so unique, I guess, in that way, and sport generally as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I've been collecting people's memories of football, I can't tell you how many memories people talk about their dads. Like that's been really interesting. Like a lot of men in particular talk about their relationship with their dad. It's just such a big part of their relationship, and some of them have been close friends and they've never mentioned their relationship with their dad to me, and that just comes out. And they're not talking about the football, they're just talking about like they got this weekly thing with their dad, and it's just such a strong memory. And yeah, I think it is nice to ask people those things and get those questions back that are more personal, I guess, than what you'd expect. Not just like, oh, I went to see Man U give Watford a major drubbing and it was the best day of my life sort of thing.
And that's the good thing. No one really talks about the game, which is always what we're looking for, because your best experiences in life aren't little things you've done. They're things that you've seen around you, and that experience of being at one of the biggest, most iconic stadiums in Europe, and even though you're seeing a game between two sides that you would probably never normally just sit and watch if you were at home on the TV, but it's that sort of experience that you would never get otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I felt quite privileged to be there. I mean, I think my ticket was something crazy like €14, like nuts. That wasn't even the cheapest seat, and it was a great experience.
I'm really glad to hear that. And I think the best thing you mentioned in that as well is how many young people were there. And I know you mentioned about a lot of particularly young men where we've interviewed them and their memories, as you say, are going to a football match with their dad or their uncle or their granddad. For that, the Women's World Cup, there was a lot of young girls going with their mums and their grandparents. And that's something that hopefully will go through to the next generation and become a real pioneer for women's football then.
Yeah, I hope so, because I felt excited for them, because I almost felt this little pang of jealousy of like, it just wasn't in my peripheral, like, if that makes sense. Maybe, as we say, like something that starts at school where those two things are quite separate. And it is quite exciting to think, this is like, what role models? This is great. This is cool.
So I want to thank you again for joining us on the Favourite Game series, for giving us such an interesting experience rather than game, actually, which is something that we haven't had too many times. A lot of people are talking about really exciting games or picking the most memorable games out of their lives. But for you to pick out an experience is something that we really quite enjoy, because it's something that we had in mind when we started the series. So I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for coming on and talking about football and your unique take on work and football. And I hope that next year your record goes down really well, and we'll certainly be listening to it and hopefully plugging it in our podcasts around the time as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's it for this week's episode. I hope you very much enjoyed it. If you did and you're watching on YouTube, please like, share and subscribe for regular content from the Honest Football Podcast. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the favourite games. You can of course follow us on Spotify if you're listening there too. We'll have regular bonus interviews and content on that platform. And you can follow us over on Twitter at Honest Football 3. We'll have updates about upcoming episodes and interviews. But for now, a massive thanks for watching again, and we'll see you next time.